Sales Babble is sponsored by Vidyard, a video solution for sales professionals.
The phone, if you're just getting started, that's like a really comfortable place to start. But then you can layer in email, and then you're using the phone and email, and those should be complementing each other. Then maybe you get a little more comfortable using social media and LinkedIn. You really want to have a, omni-channel approach in your prospecting and trying to get your prospects' attention.
So lately, have you been wondering if you're using the phone efficiently? At the same time, are you using email, video, and social media messaging in conjunction with the phone properly? And if and when you get a no, and in sales, as we all know, you get lots of no's, are you digging in with curiosity to find out why so that you could better be prepared for the next call? Well, our guest today is Collin Mitchell. Collin is a sales consultant and the host of the Sales Hustle podcast. And Collin and I babble about what to do when you get a no, how to dig in, and how to find out the challenges your prospects have with their prospects.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Welcome, Collin. Are you ready to babble?
I am ready.
Collin, you're an expert on startups. If I recall right, you've started a number of companies, and you can't really grow a company unless you got sales. I mean, this is a sales podcast, so I thought you'd be a terrific fit for this this episode.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go as much as calling myself an expert, but I'll roll with it there. And yeah, I think that for any startup or entrepreneur, somebody looking to start a side hustle and maybe become a full-time hustle, whatever the case is, like sales is the most important skill that you could learn. So before you go start a company or build something or think you have the newest, greatest, best idea, I would say get some really solid sales experience. Because even if you have the best product in the world, but you don't know how to sell it, nobody's going to care.
Nope. How did you get good at selling?
By falling on my face a lot. No, look, I mean, salespeople tend to be, and I'll speak for myself, but I've also worked with, over 100, reps that I've trained and worked with, and salespeople tend to be pretty stubborn people. So, a lot of times I can tell you here's the perfect playbook, and if you don't agree with something, then you're not going to do it until you learn from your own firsthand experience. And that's how I learned a lot of things. You say something silly on a phone call, it goes horrible, and you go, geez, I'm never going to say that again. Or you miss an important detail on a call and you listen to the recording, and you're like, gosh, why didn't I ask that question? Why didn't I go deeper on that? Why didn't I even bring that up? And then you never miss that detail again.
We learn from our failures more than from our successes, they say.
Yeah, the failures are wins. And even, every good salesperson gets way more no's than they do yeses, even if they don't want to admit it. Those are wins too, because now I can focus and refine my list and put my attention towards the people that are more likely to buy from me.
Yep. Now, a lot of the listeners here are selling products that are new, or they're new to selling a product. They've never done it before. Mm-hmm. Or they're working for a company that's brand new and has no references, has no referrals, has no history. You come from that space, starting from zero, starting at the bottom. Maybe you could tell a couple stories about how you were able to grow that, the sales portion of that. And so that listeners can get a sense of like, oh, this is what that struggle is like. This is what I should expect.
Yeah. So I would say, the phone is your best friend, right? I mean, using the phone is the best low-cost tool to, start to test your messaging, start to really narrow who your ideal prospects are, not just who you think should buy from you. Like, hey, we serve this industry or this size company or people in this, geographical area. Really, you can test a lot of things with the phone, and you'll start to learn a lot of things, and you'll document things and ask for feedback. If somebody says, no, Patrick, I'm not interested. Hey, I'm sure you have a good reason for that. Can I ask what it is? And so you start to learn things along the way to, fine tune your list or improve your targeting or improve your messaging. Start to see what resonates with people, what doesn't. And when something doesn't, find out why. People are willing to help. Say, hey, we're kind of new at this. And, I'm just curious, could you help me out here a little bit? Why weren't you interested? And so if you go into it with
people are helpful, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They are. And they feel bad for you because, you're cold calling them and, they're not interested. And if they can give you a little bit of help to get you off the phone, they're happy to do it.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And even
pretty good, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's say you do a little bit of emailing or, cold emailing or whatever. Same thing, people say no. Don't just, dig in a little bit. Ask for a little bit of help. Hey, I was hoping you could help me out for 5 minutes and I'll leave you alone. So
Right.
Early on, collecting feedback is essential, not just from the people that said yes, right? That feedback is actually less valuable. The people that said yes, the people that said no, told you to pound sand, go away, not interested, no chance. Who the heck are you? There's some interesting learnings that can happen in conversations with those people so that you can really improve in real time. I mean, that's the best thing about being small and being, a startup or just getting started is there's not a lot of red tape to make any changes. You kind of, can pretty much do whatever you need to just get the job done. And surprisingly, it's actually an advantage in a lot of situations. Being a smaller company these days is a benefit. I remember when I started my first company, I hated that we were small. I hated that, nobody knew who we were and we had all of these big competitors. And, I wanted people to, think we were bigger than we were. And I thought that was a benefit. And things have changed. And maybe that was just my own, crap or whatever. I don't know. But, now there's a lot of advantages because I just had somebody on my podcast recently who runs this sales research company, and buyers want your approach and your solutions to be more customized.
They do.
It's a lot harder for the bigger companies to meet that demand.
Smaller companies are hungrier.
They're hungrier. They're hungrier. They're more nimble. They can customize things. They can make exceptions. They can, treat you, the buyer, like you matter because you do.
That requires the seller to be persuasive to their own organization to a certain degree and say, I've got a prospect here. I think they look really, really good, but they need it to be in blue.
I don't know, Patrick. We've never done it in blue before.
Right.
Well, I don't care. Do you want the sale? He wants blue.
Right.
Give him blue.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a silly example, right? But it's like, it could be, it can go a lot of different ways. Like maybe they need a particular feature that you don't quite have, or, maybe they don't really want to pay what you're charging, but they don't need all your features and you can kind of customize, like be willing to kind of meet with them where they are, because prospects remember that too. The next time somebody else comes around, your competitor trying to sell them something, they're like, sorry, Patrick just really took care of us, met our needs exactly, was willing to go to bat for us to get us what we needed to solve this particular problem. And, they're not interested to everybody else that calls because of that.
Selling software all the time, you bump into a situation where they want a feature that you don't have. And it's incumbent upon the seller to think hard about this. Like, well, what if we pitch this out? And what if we put these two things together and package them? Software development can't read they're not in front of the customer. They're working on their databases and they're working on their interfaces, and a seller, if they could somehow get that across to them it can open up markets that you may never had before.
And figure out like, and I'm not just saying like, hey, every time customer says they need, this particular thing, be a yes man or woman and say, yeah, sure, Mr. Prospect, let's go get that for you right now. Because their idea might be horrible, So if it's a good idea, if it actually, it serves a good purpose, then it makes sense. So, one of the best ways to build trust and rapport with a prospect is to actually challenge their thinking, to actually, help them maybe consider something that they hadn't considered before, educate them or give them some ideas that they didn't have or hadn't considered, or even contest one of their ideas where they're kind of like, I thought that was a good idea, but maybe it's not. Patrick seems like the expert, and he basically told me what I didn't know and what I needed to hear, and I feel that that's our best option.
So that requires the seller to not only know their prospects, but to know their prospects, customers, their industry, and understanding the innovations in that and the challenges in that industry and where things are going in that industry. Because otherwise you can't give them ideas like, well, I know the industry that you're in is doing this, and we're prepared for that with this product to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to know your prospects extremely well to be able to advise them in that sort of capacity there, because, you throw out an idea that makes no sense, then it has the opposite effect there that you're trying to accomplish in building trust and rapport with your prospects.
How do you get that data? How do you get that information? How do you learn that? Because there's no book on your prospects. Right. There's no, you can't easily Google that.
Then go write the book on it. Like interview your prospects, get to know them on a deep level, figure out what books they read. There's a lot of simple ways you could do that. Who are they following on social media? Follow the same people. What groups are they in? What communities are they in? Where are they hanging out? What things matter to them? Ask them, even just like, if let's say you're a little bit of a bigger organization, and for an example, you're targeting, CIOs or CTOs, take your CIO or your CTO out to lunch, get to learn, what their day looks like, what they care about, things like that. Start to speak their language. I mean, if you talk to enough people enough time, that's why I said, if you're just getting started and you're new in a role, or you're at a startup or a company, or you're a founder that sells, get comfortable using the phone.
I got it.
Get comfortable using the phone, because you can talk to a lot of people, and you can learn a lot of things that are just going to help you get a little bit better at speaking their language, a little bit better at understanding their problems, a little bit better explaining how you solve those problems for them.
Sales Babble is sponsored by Vidyard. Vidyard is an easy-to-use yet powerful video solution that makes it simple to create videos, host them ad-free, share them with others, and track their performance. Whether you're recording a video for one person or sharing it with the world on your website, it's easy to manage your video content. Vidyard's solution is built for business with robust analytics, integrations with top enterprise tools, and customization options that answer businesses' unique needs. But you may be asking yourself, what's this got to do with sales? Well, with Vidyard, you can differentiate your emails by putting a face to a name when prospecting, following up, and demos. You can use the same CRM and outreach tools that you use every day to build content the entire sales team can leverage, and track analytics to know which videos convert best. Sign up for a free Vidyard account today by going to vidyard.com/babble, and as a bonus, get their high conversion virtual sales playbook. Again, go to vidyard.com/babble. That's BABBLE. Just had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a sales guy, who listens to the podcast, and he was like, no one's answering the phone. I don't know where people at. It's work for home, but it's a hybrid. So I don't know if they're in the office. I don't know if they're home. No one's picking up the phone, and I'm sending them. I got this 7-stage email cadence that's dripping on them. No one's clicking on it. I think they're going to spam. What's a seller to do in this world here in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of tools out there that can help you, get better data on phone numbers and things like that. Personally, we use a couple of the AI tools, to get, emails and phone numbers, and some are better than others. But we actually use a company that human verifies the leads for us. They call that list. They make sure that person's still there. They make sure that's their direct dial, and then they deliver it to our team before we start pounding the phones with it.
So you're pre-pounding.
So that's one option.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's other people, saying, phone ready leads and things like that. But also the phone is, I love the phone. I started in sales, hitting the phones. I'm not scared to pick up the phone. I have fun with it. I enjoy it. I'll cold call just for the heck of it. But the phone is one channel, right? You have other methods of communicating with people. So you should be using all of them. The phone, if you're just getting started, that's a really comfortable place to start. But then you can layer in email, and then you're using the phone and email, and those should be complementing each other. Then maybe you get a little more comfortable using social media and LinkedIn. You really want to have a, omni-channel approach in your prospecting and trying to get your prospects' attention. If you're using email and say LinkedIn properly, then when you actually do get somebody on the phone, it's a much warmer conversation.
I love it. That they all feed into one another and they all help one another.
Yeah. And just make sure your messaging is, consistent across, all forms, right? You're not going to use some super stuffy corporate email template and, some, big, long 4-paragraph sales pitch on LinkedIn, and then be so uncomfortable on the phone that you literally fall out of your seat when they actually pick up. You got to use these things properly because you're not going to get as many up at bats as you'd like. That's the reality. So when you do get those at bats, you better make the best of them.
I love it. When we were talking earlier, you said that you had grown a few companies pretty big. I don't remember them all, but I remember one that you spoke about. You said was a podcasting company. You grew to 40 clients. Maybe you could tell listeners that journey.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. I'll keep it brief. I went on a podcast for the very first time. And the host of that show was my co-founder, Christopher Decker. Went on his show in the studio, had a great experience, and then said, "Hey, I think I want to start one of these podcast things, and I don't really know how to do it." And he said, "It's pretty simple. You can interview whoever you want, and I'll pretty much take care of the rest for you." And I said, "That sounds fantastic. I'm a super busy guy. I've got 3 companies, 3 young kids, and maybe I can do an episode or 2 per month." He's like, "Sure, whatever you're comfortable with." And I don't recommend that. You should at least do weekly. But, he was kind of meeting me where I was at. And somebody came along and said, no, you gotta front load 20 of them and release them daily. So you get picked up in the new noteworthy in Apple, and then you'll pick up a ton of followers. And he had a very successful show. So I said, sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I did that. I don't know if it helped us at all, but what it did is it got me in that habit. And so we did a daily show for quite some time, and we really refined the product and the process and what we do. And so most of our clients use the podcast, as a way to drive revenue for their business, as a way to get access to the types of people they want to work with, whether that's directly or partnering or collaborating, or maybe their clients follow those people. And the whole concept is just really delivering a great experience, collaborating together, lifting them up. And a lot of times they end up working together. So out of the almost 40 shows that we manage, every single person was either a guest on one of our shows or guested on one of our clients' shows.
Interesting. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you find these clients? How did you prospect them? Call them? Was it on the phone?
Funny enough, no. The best channel for that is really been LinkedIn. So a lot of times it's sending a custom video, like 30 seconds or less, over LinkedIn, giving them maybe one or two little snippets of why I think they'd be a great guest for my show or one of our other shows. And then, it's a great time to be in this industry. Like, anybody who's somewhat active on social media that hasn't started a podcast has at least been considering it. So they're curious, and the common, thing that people say, everybody else has a show. I don't know if I want to have a show. And the demand is really, bigger than the inventory, because a lot of shows die really quickly. There's a vast majority of shows that, I like to say are in the podcast graveyard that hit about 8 or 10 episodes and then never release anything again. And the top, 10% of shows are getting about 90% of the listenership. So there's a lot of opportunity for good quality shows. And if you don't really focus on the downloads right away and you really focus on some of the other things like building relationships with awesome people, it's a really fun activity that can also drive revenue for your business.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's what I've found. If you could give our listeners one piece of advice they could take action on this week, what would that be?
One thing. Does it have to be one? I'm just kidding. I'll pick one. One thing.
If you give them too many, people get confused, and it's just easier to focus on one thing.
Yeah. Other than share this episode with their friends and subscribe to Sales Hustle Podcast, I don't know. One thing, just look for opportunities to improve and ask for some feedback. If you're striking out at your at-bats, try to figure out why, whether it's, looking back at your Zoom recordings, look at your call recordings, or just blatantly asking the people that kind of, shut you down for a little bit of feedback. And you'll be surprised how much you'll learn and improve and get better, regardless of what the particular activity is.
I know I'm repeating myself here, but people are surprisingly kind. They'll tell you. Lots of times they'll tell you, like, this is why I didn't buy. Like, okay.
You're too pushy. Or, they think, and you know what's interesting? Here's what's really interesting. When you ask for that feedback, and it's not even intended to like get them back into your sales funnel, there's a good percentage of them, typically about 20%, that are really still interested. They're just a little confused, or they weren't listening to you, or you didn't explain something properly. So by asking for that feedback, you can clear up whatever it is that they're confused about.
Yep. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Collin, if people want to find you, they want to find your podcasts, where would they go?
Really simple. Wherever they're listening to this awesome podcast today, they can search for Sales Hustle. I'm available on whatever platform they're on listening to this right now.
It's everywhere. Yeah. And they can find you on LinkedIn. Is that the best place to find you?
Yeah. LinkedIn, Collin -Sales Hustle. Pretty easy to find me on there, or come in on the podcast. Easy to find, anything else there from the podcast. It's a great place to start.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Collin, for visiting here and babbling here on Sales Babble. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing about sales, it's a really competitive profession. And I get that some days it's hard to step up and do what you need to be doing because prospects are reluctant, they're wary, they're skeptical. Look, I know you're not trying to scam them, but they don't know that. So I'm hoping that today's episodes has given you some food for thought, some advice you can take action on, and that somehow it's going to result in more conversations, advancing more deals, and closing more business. because I believe if you do what Collin says, the advice is going to work for you. I've got a small request. Could you do me a favor? Could you please share this episode with one person who you know wants to improve their selling results? Just one person? If you're listening on an app, they all have the ability to share with a text or a message or an email. Or if you're on the website, there's share buttons on there on the show notes at www.salesbabble.com. Please share this with a friend, a colleague, or maybe even someone in your family who owns a business, who also does some sales of some kind. These selling secrets can make a big difference in their selling confidence. That's all I got today, folks. Until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.